The phone buzzed violently at 3:02 a.m., and Emma's heart froze as the screen lit with Liam's name, only for the words to carve into her chest. "We need to talk," she whispered. "Why now?" as tears blurred her sight. Her hands trembled, the night suffocating her with silence. Every second of waiting carved deeper into her fear. Emma said, "You can't end this with a sentence." Yet the message stared back, cold and final. She remembered the promises of forever whispered across oceans, but now they bled into lies. Her room, once filled with warmth, became a coffin of unanswered questions. The clock ticked, louder than her heartbeat. She wanted to call, to scream, but her voice drowned in disbelief. She whispered, "I gave everything, and you give me goodbye." The emptiness mocked her, shadows pressing in. It was not the end she feared, it was that he had already written it long before she could even see the first line. Emma's chest rose and fell in ragged waves as she whispered, "Not like this." The silence grew heavier, her room no longer familiar but foreign and cold. She remembered Liam's voice promising, "Distance can't break us," yet tonight those words mocked her like broken glass. Her phone felt heavier in her palm, each second a betrayal. She longed to call, but the thought of hearing indifference terrified her more than silence. Every memory sharpened, midnight laughter, whispered vows, the hope she clung to like air. Emma asked herself, was I always the only one fighting? The lamp's glow dimmed, shadows stretching across walls like ghosts of promises. She pressed the phone to her chest, heart pounding against it, praying this wasn't the final echo. Emma replayed their last call in her mind, every word now sounding like a lie. She recalled his laugh, warm yet distant, and wondered if she had ignored the truth too long. She whispered, "You were already leaving, weren't you?" Her thumb hovered over his name on her screen, trembling, unable to press call. The clock struck 3:15, dragging her deeper into dread. She wrapped her blanket around her shoulders, as if it could shield her from betrayal. Her body shook, not from cold, but from the sudden void where love once lived. Emma's chest ached, her faith bleeding away with every memory turned sour. The silence pressed harder, louder than words, and Emma felt trapped in her own skin. She remembered their planned reunion, the flight tickets waiting in her email, the dream she clung to. Now those dreams rotted like abandoned fruit. She muttered, "All this time, I was waiting for nothing." The shadows on her walls seemed to lean closer, mocking her hope. She remembered Liam saying, "We are unstoppable," but every promise now echoed with cruelty. Emma curled tighter, unable to breathe under the weight of betrayal. Emma whispered into the hollow dark, "I was never enough, was I?" Her voice cracked, breaking like glass against silence. She imagined Liam across the ocean, already free of her, already writing their ending. She thought of every sacrifice she made, missed chances, lonely nights, endless faith, and how little it mattered now. Her chest burned with anger and grief intertwined. She pressed her forehead to her knees, tears soaking fabric. The night mocked her with its stillness, and her heart screamed for a closure that would never come. The morning sun broke through half-closed blinds, but Emma felt no warmth in its glow. Her eyes were raw from crying, yet her phone lay on the nightstand, still silent. She remembered nights when Liam's call was the only light she had, and how she had built her days around waiting. Emma whispered, "I stayed because I believed us," clutching the pillow he had once held during his last visit. Memories pressed against her ribs like thorns, and the world outside her window felt unreachable. Friends told her she was strong, but her strength was stitched from fragile hope. Her chest ached with the truth that she had lived for words sent across oceans. She wanted to believe he still loved her, but silence screamed louder than faith. Emma wandered into the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator louder than her own thoughts. She poured coffee into a chipped mug, staring at the rising steam as if it could answer her questions. She remembered Liam saying, "One day, we'll drink this together every morning," and the lie carved deeper. She leaned against the counter, her body heavy with exhaustion, her soul heavier with longing. Every sip tasted like ash, her lips trembling against the rim of the mug. She said softly, "I waited for every promise," but the silence reminded her that promises were ghosts now. The clock ticked in cruel rhythm, reminding her how time had always been their enemy. Later, Emma sat at her small desk, fingers hovering above her laptop keyboard. Photos of her and Liam decorated the wall, smiles frozen in a past she no longer trusted. She whispered, "I built my life around your words," while her inbox flashed unread messages unrelated to him. Work emails meant nothing compared to the void in her chest. She traced the edges of a printed photo where Liam's hand rested on hers, feeling the sting of its emptiness now. Her phone buzzed once, just a reminder from a calendar, and her breath hitched, hope crushed in an instant. She muttered, "Why am I still waiting for you?" Emma walked into the living room, phone in hand, as if distance could shrink with enough longing. She remembered their nightly video calls, her screen glowing with his tired smile. Now, that same screen reflected her empty eyes. She whispered, "You were my home, even when you weren't here." And the weight of those words bent her shoulders. The couch where she once laughed during their late-night movies felt hollow now. Every corner of her apartment carried echoes of his absence. She tried to call, but her thumb froze over his name. Fear of silence outweighed even the need to hear his voice. As dusk fell, Emma sat by the window, city lights flickering alive in the distance. She pressed her forehead to the glass, feeling the cool surface ground her. She whispered, "I gave up so much to hold on to you," her reflection fractured in the pain. Friends invited her out, but she always stayed, tethered to hope like a prisoner. She remembered Liam's promise, "We'll close the distance soon." Those words played on repeat, sharp as broken glass. The night wrapped around her shoulders, and she realized her sacrifices were invisible to him. Yet her heart, stubborn and raw, still ached for proof that love wasn't dying. Emma stared at her phone, the screen blank though hours had passed since her last message. She whispered, "You promised you'd call," as her thumb traced old conversations like sacred relics. Liam's silence pressed heavier than any words, leaving her to drown in unanswered questions. She thought of the missed birthday he once vowed to never forget, and how silence replaced candles. Emma muttered, "Maybe I'm the only one keeping count," her voice trembling as tears pooled again. She felt every mile stretch further, every hour a cruel reminder that devotion was not shared. At work, Emma caught herself glancing at her phone between tasks, each vibration of false hope. She scrolled social media, her chest tightening at a photo of Liam with friends, a woman leaning too close. Emma whispered, "Who is she?" as jealousy clawed its way into her veins. Her co-workers laughed nearby, but their joy only deepened her isolation. She muttered, "Why can strangers have his smile when I can't?" Her heart pounded, equal parts fear and rage, the image searing itself into her thoughts like fire. That evening, Emma sat by her laptop, trying to video call Liam. The ringing dragged endlessly before the screen finally lit, showing his tired face. He said, "Sorry, I was busy," his tone flat, eyes darting elsewhere. Emma forced a smile, whispering, "I just missed you." Silence stretched between them, heavier than miles. Every word she spoke felt like pebbles tossed into a void, sinking without echo. She noticed shadows behind him, voices muffled, and her chest clenched. She muttered, "Are you even here with me anymore?" Emma's chest tightened when Liam laughed mid-call, turning his head toward someone off-screen. She whispered, "Who are you talking to?" But his quick denial only deepened her dread. He said, "It's nothing, just a friend," yet the word friend cracked like thunder. Emma felt the air leave her lungs, her trust unraveling. Her hands shook as she closed the laptop, muttering, "Every mile feels like betrayal." The silence after the call cut sharper than any words he could have spoken. Emma curled on the couch, phone clutched in her hand, staring at Liam's name in her call history. She whispered, "You're slipping away from me," as the knot in her chest grew unbearable. Every promise replayed in her mind, colliding with every silence. She remembered the way his voice once calmed storms, but now it created them. She muttered, "I'm holding on to pieces while you let go." Tears stained her cheeks as she pressed the phone against her heart, knowing the distance between them was no longer miles but choices. Emma's phone buzzed late into the night, her chest tightening as Liam's name appeared. She answered quickly, whispering, "I've missed you," but his sigh carried no warmth. He said, "We need to be honest," his voice sharp yet trembling. Emma froze, her breath shallow as she asked, "What do you mean?" His silence dragged like chains, each second slicing deeper. She pressed, "Please don't do this," but his eyes, when the video call connected, held a truth she had feared all along. Her heart screamed even before his words arrived. Liam muttered, "There's someone else." The words detonated, tearing Emma's chest open. She shook her head violently, whispering, "No, you don't mean that." His voice cracked. It wasn't supposed to happen. Tears burned her vision, every memory of devotion collapsing. Emma screamed, "I gave up everything for us," but his silence admitted the betrayal louder than words. The distance between them became infinite, her faith shattering into pieces too small to hold. Emma's body trembled as she whispered, "Who is she?" Her voice cracked with rage and heartbreak. Liam rubbed his forehead, muttering, "Just someone here?" It wasn't planned. The words hollowed her chest. She spat, "You made me wait while you replaced me." Her tears soaked her shirt, her heart pounding with disbelief. Every late reply, every missed call, every excuse flashed in brutal clarity. She whispered, "You ended us long before you confessed." Silence filled the call, a grave for promises. Emma slammed the laptop shut, collapsing against the desk. Her sobs echoed, raw and uncontainable. She whispered, "I sacrificed everything. My time, my future, just for you." Her voice a broken plea to an empty room. She thought of the nights she had stayed awake, the opportunities she had turned down, all for love that was already dead. Her chest burned as she muttered, "I was never enough." Shadows thickened around her, pressing her into the suffocating silence. Hours later, Emma sat by the window, city lights blurred by her tears. She whispered, "All this time, I loved a ghost." Her reflection stared back, fractured and unrecognizable. Liam's betrayal replayed in her mind, each memory poisoned. She pressed her palm to the glass, as if distance could still hold him, but the truth hollowed her completely. She muttered, "You wrote our ending while I clung to a beginning," the words slicing her open. The night swallowed her grief, leaving her trembling in the silence of what could never be repaired. Emma sat at her desk, the glow of the laptop like a wound that would not heal. She stared at Liam's name on the screen, her finger trembling above the call button. She whispered, "You don't get to leave me in silence," her voice shaking but edged with fury. The call connected, and Liam's tired face filled the screen. He said, "Emma, I told you the truth, what else do you want?" She bit back a sob, her voice breaking, "I want the years you stole from me back." His sigh cut her deeper than any blade. He muttered, "I never asked you to wait like this." And the words slammed into her chest. Emma cried out, "You begged me to, Liam. You promised me everything." His silence was an answer she could not bear. Her tears blurred the screen, yet she leaned closer, as if rage could cross oceans. She whispered, "You wrote me out of your life before I even knew the ending." He shook his head, but his eyes betrayed the guilt. His lips pressed into a thin line. Emma pressed her hand to the screen, trembling. "You were my world, and I was just your distraction." The call spiraled into chaos, Emma's voice raw and ragged. She shouted, "Every night I stayed awake just to hear your voice, while you were giving it to someone else." Liam rubbed his temples, muttering, "You don't understand, I didn't mean to hurt you." Emma's laugh cracked like glass. "Didn't mean? You destroyed me." She slammed her palm against the desk, tears dripping onto the wood. He said, "I was lonely here, Emma. I needed someone near." Her chest burned as she screamed, I was lonely too, but I stayed loyal. The silence after her words rang like judgment. Emma's body trembled, her shoulders hunched, her heart thrashing like a trapped bird. She whispered, "You killed the only thing I believed in." Liam lowered his gaze, his lips quivering but unable to form defense. The weight of his betrayal filled the room, suffocating her as she sobbed into her shaking hands. Emma's voice cracked into a whisper. Was she worth it? Liam froze, his silence sharper than any admission. She pressed. Was she worth throwing away everything we built? He muttered, "It wasn't about worth, it just happened." Emma's body recoiled, fury flashing in her eyes. She said, "Nothing just happens. You chose her. Every unanswered call, every lie, every broken promise was a choice." Liam opened his mouth but closed it again, his expression hollow. Emma slammed her fist into the desk, her voice rising. "You replaced me while I was still loving you." He whispered, "I'm sorry." But the words fell flat, lifeless. Emma's tears burned as she muttered, "Sorry doesn't stitch back years of sacrifice." She sobbed, clutching her chest as if to hold her breaking heart together. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, the weight of betrayal crushing her lungs. The confrontation erupted into desperation, Emma's sobs tangled with fury. She cried, "Do you know what I gave up for you? Opportunities, friendships, my own happiness, everything." Liam whispered, "I never asked for that," but his tone was weak. Emma screamed, "Yes, you did. Every time you begged me to hold on, every time you swore we'd make it, you asked me to sacrifice." Her tears blurred her sight, yet her rage cut clear. She pounded her chest with her fist, muttering, "I can't breathe without this pain." Liam looked at her, guilt etched in every line of his face, but he offered no defense. Emma's voice broke into a plea. "Why wasn't I enough, Liam? Why couldn't my love be enough?" The silence answered her, brutal and final. She collapsed against the desk, sobbing into her arms, her body shaking uncontrollably. Emma's voice softened into something more terrifying than rage, resignation. She whispered, "I begged for scraps of your time while you gave someone else the feast of your presence." Liam muttered, "It's not that simple," but his tone was hollow. She lifted her head, eyes red and swollen, and said, "It's exactly that simple. You stopped choosing me." The words hung heavy, like stones in the air. Emma pressed her trembling hand against the screen, whispering, "I loved you with everything I had, and you loved me only when it was easy." Liam's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but his silence confessed more than words. Emma drew a sharp breath, muttering, "This is the end, Liam." He whispered her name, Emma, but the connection felt already severed. She closed her eyes, tears slipping silently down her cheeks, the final fragments of their love crumbling inside her chest. Emma sat in the stillness of her room, the laptop closed, but its glow still haunting her. She whispered, "It's over," as if saying it aloud could make the ache retreat. The silence pressed against her chest, heavy and suffocating, but different now. It was final. She thought of the hours she had spent waiting for Liam's name to light up her phone, and how the same device now felt like a weapon that had cut her open. Her hands shook as she pulled the blanket tighter, as though it could shield her from the emptiness. "You don't get to haunt me anymore," she said, her voice trembling, though she knew he already would. Her breath hitched, her body exhausted from nights of carrying hope. For the first time, she did not wait for a reply, and that terrified her more than the betrayal itself. The next morning, Emma sat at the kitchen table with untouched coffee cooling in its mug. The steam faded, much like the warmth of their love. She whispered, "I used to wake for you," her voice barely audible in the empty space. Every morning had once meant waiting for a message, a call, a promise of connection, but now it was just routine stripped of meaning. Her phone lay face down, silent, and she did not reach for it. She traced circles in the wood grain with her finger, grounding herself in the texture of something real, something unchanging. "I need to learn life without you," she muttered, though her chest recoiled at the thought. The apartment felt larger, emptier, like a stage stripped of its actors. She sat frozen, letting grief settle like dust across her skin. Emma stepped outside that evening, the city buzzing around her with lives still moving. She felt out of place, her body walking, but her heart still tethered to a love now gone. She whispered, "The world didn't stop, only mine did." Strangers passed with laughter, couples brushed shoulders, neon lights pulsed like reminders of everything she had lost. She stopped by a store window, catching her reflection fractured among displays, and thought, "Who am I without him?" Her tears welled, but she swallowed them, unwilling to collapse before a city that did not care. For the first time, she realized that healing would not be loud or sudden, it would be slow, cruel, and lonely. She pressed her hands into her pockets, walking deeper into the night, carrying the unbearable weight of survival. At home again, Emma found herself sitting on the couch, phone in hand, thumb hovering over Liam's name. She whispered, "Don't call," her voice half prayer, half command. Her chest throbbed with the temptation to hear his voice, even knowing it would destroy her again. She thought of her family's warnings, of her best friend Sarah saying, "You're giving too much of yourself away," and realized they had been right. Her lips trembled as she muttered, "I should have listened." She set the phone face down, pressing it into the cushion as though burying it. Tears welled again, but her body felt too heavy to cry, her heart dry from endless nights of mourning. She leaned back, whispering, "This is my life now, empty but mine." The truth cut, but it was real. Later that night, Emma stood at her window, watching the city lights blink like stars scattered across concrete skies. She whispered, "I waited for love, but I was waiting for a ghost." Her reflection stared back, tired but unbroken, and for the first time she saw both the wreckage and the strength in her own face. She remembered Liam's last whispered, "Emma," and realized it no longer had power over her. Her tears flowed quietly, but they felt cleansing, not crushing. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass, muttering, "I will carry this, but I will not be buried by it." The ache lingered, but beneath it was a fragile spark, something like survival. She inhaled deeply, closing her eyes against the city glow, knowing tomorrow would hurt too, but she would still wait to face it. Emma sat on the couch, phone in her lap, staring at the screen that had once been a lifeline. She whispered, "This silence is louder than your voice ever was." The empty air pressed in, suffocating yet steady, as if teaching her how to exist without him. She thought of the thousands of words once exchanged, the midnight calls, the endless promises that now meant nothing. Her thumb hovered over his name, but never pressed. She muttered, "I used to live for your messages, now I live in their absence." The finality sank in, carving its weight into her bones. For the first time, she let the phone slide from her hand onto the cushion, as though surrender itself was the only way forward. Later, Emma walked through the park as evening fell, the air cool and crisp, the sky bruised with fading light. She whispered, "I carried us alone," her words slipping into the wind. Children laughed in the distance, couples strolled hand in hand, but she walked alone, shoulders weighed by invisible chains. She thought of Liam's smile, once her anchor, now a memory that cut like glass. Her feet dragged across the path, each step heavy with grief, but also defiance. She muttered, "You took my trust, but you won't take all of me." The truth felt fragile, yet it was the only truth she had left. Leaves rustled in the breeze, reminding her that even endings were part of life's cruel rhythm. That night, Emma sat at her desk, a notebook open before her. She began writing, her hand trembling but steadying with each word. "I gave him years, but I'll keep the lessons," she whispered as ink bled onto paper. She thought of how her love had been a cage disguised as devotion, and how she had mistaken pain for proof of loyalty. Her tears smudged the page, but she kept writing, each sentence a wound stitched closed. She muttered, "If you won't carry our story, I will end it here." The pen scratched on, relentless, until she exhaled for the first time without waiting for him. The silence felt different now, not a punishment, but a space where she could finally hear herself again. Emma placed the framed photo of Liam face down on her desk, her hand lingering for a moment before letting go. She whispered, "You don't get to watch me anymore." The simple act felt like breaking a chain, though the ache still pulsed in her chest. She sat back, staring at the ceiling, the weight of years pressing down but beginning to shift. She thought of her family, her friend Sarah, all the voices she had silenced for the sake of love that betrayed her. She muttered, "I chose you over everything, but I'll choose myself now." The words didn't feel like victory, not yet, but they felt like survival. And for Emma, survival was enough tonight. Emma stood at the window, city lights shimmering against the night sky. She pressed her palm to the glass, her breath fogging the pain. She whispered, "I waited for you until there was nothing left of me." Her reflection stared back, fragile yet unbroken, and for the first time she recognized herself as more than what she lost. Tears slipped silently, but they no longer crushed her. They simply existed, part of her story. She muttered, "This is where I end us." The phone buzzed once on the table behind her, but she didn't turn. The final blow wasn't his betrayal or silence. It was her choice to no longer answer. She whispered into the night, "And that was the last time his name ever lit up my phone."